Got it.
All right, let's get the party started. Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today we're interviewing Joseph R. and today's going to be our 85th episode. So we're getting up there. I want to say hello to Joseph. How are you, sir?
Good, James. How are you?
I'm doing well. So let's dive in. Tell me about growing up. How was your childhood?
Well, I guess you could call it a, so-called normal childhood. I had really great parents. They did not get along with each other, but they were great parents to myself, my brother, and my sister. So
What kind of things would happen between them? They said they weren't so nice to each other.
Everything, they just, I don't know. It must have gone back to before I was even born, and things just got worse as it got along, as things went along. But as far as the way they were parenting, their parenting skills were wonderful, I think, towards the three of us, the three kids. So they just fought all the time. But I'm sure that stays with you, throughout your life. But that was it. My father died kind of early, which he was kind of like my best friend. We did everything together, sports and sporting events. I mean, I don't think there was any sporting event he never took me to, just things at the Garden, Shea Stadium, all over the place. And he died because he drank, but I never saw him drunk, but I don't think that was really it. He smoked like 2 packs a day. So, and he had a heart condition. So he died when he was like 55. And so, I miss him all the time, even till now. And I'm 68 years old, and it's like, 40 years later. But
do you think your dad had an issue with alcohol? Do you think he would be?
No, I really don't think so. Cause it'd be nice when he wouldn't even have a drink. There was never any beer in the house. Just once in a while, I'd see him have a drink. But I never, like I said, I never saw him slur a word in my life. I never saw him, and they were nice. We'd spend together and days and nights. And we'd go to the ballpark. He'd never buy a beer, so I really don't think, I think it was the smoking that killed him, though, which is another issue for me. People that smoke. I mean, that's a big addiction too, but that's probably a story for another time.
Well, yeah, we could talk about it. I think that's one of the things it's not mentioned enough. Like when people talk about the drugs they do, I think cigarettes should be on that list. Like, I do weed, I smoked crack, I did heroin, and I also smoke cigarettes. Like it should be part of the list.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as the other drugs. It gets you a little buzzed and it kills you. And It's a habit that's no good for you, but you continue to do it no matter the fact that it's negative consequences.
Yeah. I mean, it basically is in the same category as alcohol, that they are both carcinogenic neurotoxins. They'll that's the way they hit you. They're not good for you in any way.
What does it have, like the same type of dopamine release or something like that? Like based on
no, it's just the way it affects your brain and body parts and everything. It's like, it leaves you more susceptible for cancers and neurotoxin. I mean, toxin is a poison. So, you're poisoning yourself when you take this stuff. But, we live in a society that alcohol just flows. It's a big business, real big business, the alcohol, the liquor industry. So we're constantly seeing advertisements. Not just that. I mean, even in movies, I don't think I've ever seen a movie without somebody drinking, for some reason.
Exactly. It's, and I would say, one of the things is a classy guy in all the movies. Whenever you have like this classy guy, it's always drinking scotch.
Yeah. Just little neat. Yeah. In a little glass. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's something that it's so funny that it used to be banned. We had prohibition because it's something that's something that now I feel is built into the fabric of our society.
It is. And I think what happened with cigarettes, because back in the 50s, even doctors were advertising for cigarettes. And then, got all this information. I think slowly we're gaining all this information about alcohol. And I see, because I like the taste of beer. I drink Guinness 0.0. I drink Heineken 0.0. I think that market share is growing, the NA market share in beer. They still haven't made a good wine, though, that's not alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, I was always lucky because I didn't like the taste of liquor. I was an alcoholic. I was like a full-blown, 5 to 10 drinks a night, straight shots of bourbon or whiskey, alcoholic, but I never liked the taste. I remember I would hold my breath because that kind of helps you not taste it while it's going down the hatch.
Yeah, exactly. Like doing a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's all I did was shots.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I grew up kind of normal, went to school, got my bachelor's in accounting, eventually became a CPA, and I worked at that for many years. I was previously married. My wife had Huntington's disease, and I think that probably affected me. I mean, it's a kind of a slow death kind of disease if you're not familiar with it, and so that was some difficult times.
If you don't mind me asking, what did the disease do?
Oh, it's kind of if you can picture a combination of Parkinson's and dementia. It what it does, it affects your brain and your motor skills. So eventually you're just dwindled down to nothing, you know. So I mean, in the last like 5 years of marriage, I wasn't really even like having a marital relationship. It was more like I was the caregiver, you know. So that was something, that was a big change. That was something new to me, having just to be a caregiver, and dealing with her children, because she was previously married, who didn't do a whole lot for her, hardly visited. And my daughter, who was not related to my wife at the time, my daughter said, "Dad, sell the house, move in with us." They got the two family. We moved into the apartment next door to my daughter. My daughter made dinner every night, and it was better, but she, obviously still was deteriorating, So,
Going back a little bit, because I'm
yeah.
not sure when it was, what was the first time you ever used alcohol or drugs or anything like that? Was it back in your school days, or when was that?
Yeah, I guess in school days, in high school, and in college, but nothing heavy duty. You'd smoke some weed on the weekends, and go to some bars on the weekends, but usually nothing during the week. Just pretty much studying during the week. I did have back surgery back in '91, and then I got addicted to like the painkillers, the oxys and muscle relaxers and tranquilizers and all that. And but and I was on them for years, but eventually on my own I decided I'm just going to wean myself off this, and that's what I did. I mean, it took me like 4 or 5 months. I would just keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it down to little by little, and that was it. So I know it can be done, you know but then probably, I don't know, 3+ years ago, I'm married again. And we've been married like 3.5, 4 years almost. Yeah, it's going on 4 years. Anyway, and it's great. I mean, I have a great relationship. I love my wife. Like, she's like, we just, we're in sync on so many things, so it's a wonderful, I just love spending time with her. And but I guess I still had some kind of anxiety or depression problems, and I'd get to sleep on time, and maybe because I went to sleep too early, and I'd always pop up at like 2, 3 in the morning and couldn't get back to sleep, and then I'd go on the couch, I start drinking wine, and that became like a a ritual kind of thing, and then I fall asleep, and then eventually the wine turned into vodka. And then because I'm retired and I wasn't, I'm a musician, but I wasn't playing out that much. and I only had a few students because I teach as well. I just was wanting to kill some time during the day, and I would drink the vodka and just until I passed out on the couch. And that became my thing until it kind of became a habit, and it really wasn't until my wife found all my empty vodka bottles that and I still didn't admit I was an alcoholic, or having an alcohol use disorder, as they now, refer to it as. But I did start going to AA meetings in the next town, and met some nice people. But a lot of it was about all their war stories. A lot of their sharing was about how bad things got, and I was like looking for something positive to take out of it, and I just couldn't. I mean, I read the whole big book. I mean, I could talk to you about things in the big book. So I mean, I could have discussions with staunch AA people, and refer to different parts of the big book that they might not even know about. I did have a problem with the higher power, and it's not because I'm not a spiritual person, and it's not because I don't believe in a higher power, Jim. It's because I don't think the higher power, whatever that may be, he, she, it, is not really concerned with the day-to-day things that are going on. I mean, I think there's a lot of other things to be concerned with if they were going to be concerned, like the 40,000 children who die of starvation every year throughout the world. So I think we're kind of on our own. We've got free will. We make our decisions. You make your mess, you clean it up. So that was always my feeling. But so the AA meetings didn't help, and I just basically started drinking again. And then, and my wife found out, it was like, you really need to go to rehab. And
that's one of the things I agree with. I remember when I used to go to the AA meetings, all these people kept saying was it's a spiritual program, but all they talked about was religion. It's like, you're not talking about spirituality. You're talking about religion. There is a difference.
Yeah.
One thing that really hit me was at the end of the meeting, they would end with the Our Father. And it's like, oh my God, one time there was a Hasidic Jew in the room.
Oh.
So how can you end with the Our Father? It's completely disrespectful in my mind.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, especially when you say it's not a religious program. And I'm not knocking AA. Like you said, I know the basic text. I know that 164. I've read all those pages 4 or 5 times within the past 2 years. I even have a special edition of the big book that looks like it did when it was published in 1939.
Oh, wow.
It was red. Yeah, it was red, actually. Red and yellow on the cover, or red and white. I forget. I have it here.
Wow. Anyway, back in rehab.
How old were you at this point? What's your age at this point?
I'm 68, so rehab was probably age 65.
So you were drinking for a long time.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. For definitely over a year. Yeah.
One thing in your lifetime, I mean, when was your first time you ever realized you had a problem?
With drinking, probably, when my wife brought it to my attention that I had all these empty bottles around, and I was finishing off all the wine in the house and everything, and I still didn't want to admit it, but eventually I realized, I got to stop doing this. I've got a problem with it. I've got to do better. I can't do this. I can't. I mean, I was getting to the point where I was driving drunk, and that started scaring me. And then one time, I just drank some vodka straight and totally passed out. I fell on one of my guitars.
I'm a musician. I'm also a musician, so I know the love you develop for your guitars.
I cracked open my 99 Takamine 12 string, which is my go-to guitar when I play out.
Yeah.
I just destroyed it. And the thing is, EMT came over, my daughter came over, everybody came. I don't remember a thing. That short-term memory never connected with my long-term memory, so it's gone. I can't even tell you what happened, other than them, my wife and my daughter telling me what happened. I woke up in the hospital in emergency, and eventually I was able to, walk back and forth across the room, and the guy was like, "Okay, you can go now," but, that still didn't totally sink in. I can't really say when it sunk in, because I was always kind of fighting it, but then, I guess, right around when I went to AA meetings and then went back to drinking, it kind of hit me that why am I still drinking? You know, but I was, and I was still hiding it. And then my wife found out, and that's when I went to rehab. So I went to this rehab place for 21 days, and it was basically like an all day long AA meeting. The only difference was the food was good. That was pretty much it. And I got to meet a couple of good guys like around my age that I still keep in contact with, especially one guy who's also a musician. He's in like an hour and a half from me, but we get together every couple of months and hang out. And so, what I did, because fortunately, I don't know why, they gave me the handicap room, which was by yourself, and you bed to yourself, no roommate. So I spent as much time as I possibly could in that room by myself. You had to go to meetings or they'd pull you out of the room, but as much as I could stay in there, I would. And fortunately, I took, when I left for rehab, I took this book that I had read a couple of years ago called The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama and Dr. Howard Cutler.
I read it.
You read it, so you know it. Yeah.
These right here were blessed by the Dalai Lama. I've read a number of his books. Yeah, quite a bit.
I'm reading one now. Yeah, I mean, so I kind of, not just reading it, man. I was underlining it, writing down points, and realizing that the whole thing is about reducing your negativity and replacing it with positivity. Yeah. And that always, that just kind of stuck in my mind. And so when I got back home, I realized, okay, what did I get out of that? Well, maybe not nothing, but I did have a therapist there that I met with once a week, and she knew that the AA thing wasn't resonating with me. So she says, Joey, she said, there are other ways. There's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and there are other programs like Smart Recovery, like Refuge Recovery. So she was, going on the computer and helped me figure out, what I'm going to do there. So I realized, I had to be a better person, because something wasn't right with me, and I know I was using the alcohol to cover it up, and whatever it was. But I knew I had to do better. So my goal was, not just to be sober. Like the Dalai Lama says, if you just use the word no and tell yourself, no, you can't do this, that has negative connotations. And if you don't replace it with something positive, all you're doing is repressing things, and it's kind of like a spring. It's just going to bounce back. So I knew I had to, my goal was, not just to be sober, but to lead a happy, a healthy, and a sober free, and a sober, not sober free, and a sober lifestyle. So what I did, this was me. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody. I started on a self-improvement journey. The Art of Happiness was my first book. The next book was a book about cognitive behavioral therapy. And James, I couldn't even keep track of the amount of books, articles, publications that I read to kind of fortify myself, strengthen myself, help me learn things, help me be better. To, you know, I was reading, studying. I mean, things like I said, CBT, meditation, mindfulness, kindness and generosity, compassion, gratitude, all the Buddhist principles, living in the present. I mean, I got to the point where I was studying neuropsychology and you know, things about using mindfulness to get through anxiety and depression. And then I read a lot of books basically just on happiness. Like I don't remember the guy's name, but he wrote "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff." I mean, simple thing like that, but I got a lot out of it. You know, I realized all the things that were happy in life. And then my wife and I started to just one weekend. She said, "Yeah, how about we go for a hike?" And we did this one hike. And then next week I said, "You know, that was great. It really made me feel like, you know, grounded." And you know, we've been doing it ever since, like a year and a half now. We go pretty much every weekend. We go out in the woods for about a couple hours, sometimes 2-3 hours. Sometimes we get lost. Sometimes I need both hands and feet to get up the hill. But it to me, nature it was a big part of my recovery. You know, I mean, the self-improvement, but I did nature as well was, you know, kind of a big part of it. And I think what also helped me was, I guess, you know, growing up, you know, we used to say, "I'm taking notes." Today they call it journaling. Okay, yep. So right, so I guess I was journaling, and I wrote a lot of notes, basically about every single book or article that I read, and probably I got all those notes, and it probably took me 15, 16, 17 months. And I took all those notes and I edited them. And, you know, I put them into a book because, you know, I felt like, hey, if I could do it, it can't be me. I'm not the only one who could do this on their own. I mean, other people got to be able to do it. Problem is, if you go to AA, you do not feel self-empowered. You feel, you know, just low, like, you know, you feel like a moral failure, like, you know. Yeah. So I wrote this book. If I could just, I don't know if you could see it.
Yeah, let's see there. You have the power to fully recover from your alcohol use disorder.
Yes.
At the bottom, it says no steps required.
No steps required, because there are no steps. It's not a program. It's an individual thing. I think recovery is an individual thing. And, you know, it's not to push the book, but you can get this on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, all those places. I think it even comes in an ebook as well. Man, it's got quite a couple of good reviews on it as well. So, and the main thing about the book is that I talk about having these commitments, these 3 commitments that I made to myself, and I think it's important. And it's like, number 1 is like, remain sober. Okay. That's the one thing. The second one is to change your lifestyle, because obviously the lifestyle that you were living was leading you to alcohol. So you got to do some kind of change there. And the third thing was to seek happiness and contentment, because if you're not happy, if you're a sober, miserable person, I don't get the point. You know, I didn't want
exactly.
You know, I had a friend of mine whose wife, she passed away, but she went to AA for 20 years, never drank again, but she was miserable.
It's funny because we have 10 steps, and mine don't include the higher power or God. It's a little different.
Yeah.
But the third step is we were entirely ready to abandon and no longer live the lifestyle we had been living.
Yeah, exactly. Got to make a change. I mean, and change is not always easy. But sometimes you have to let go of things. Sometimes you have to accept things. You know, those are various chapters in the book. It talks about taking responsibility, taking control of your life, making positive choices. But then I also talk about being kind to yourself, you know, having self-acceptance, having self-forgiveness, you know, and having self-confidence. it talks about how to deal with cravings and thoughts, negative thoughts, life's challenges. Even the most positive person in the world still has negative thoughts. It's just how we deal with them. I talk about managing stress, and I think a big part is about training your brain through neuroplasticity, how you can reduce that habit that's in your brain, in your neural pathways, and create new neural pathways, based on good habits.
Yep.
Like exercise. I mean, I exercise probably at least 5 times a week. We have a gym in the house, and it's great. And then again, going out in nature, and really cultivating not more on what you did badly when you were an alcoholic and who you hurt, and because I think those people that you hurt when you were an alcoholic, I think they know that really wasn't you. I think they know that was the alcohol doing that shit. So this talks about taking an inventory of your positive qualities, because that's what I like to focus on. Everybody has positive qualities, but you really need to focus on it. And I kind of break it down into like 4 different happiness strategies, and it's really very helpful. I mean, a lot of people have read it who have not had a problem with alcohol and have said, this is good. I mean, this is good for me, even just to deal with life. Alcohol, drugs, all that stuff, everything's a part of life. It's all about learning and relearning. Brain's always changing, changes by oh, there you are. Your brain changes by experience and by what you focus on. If you focus on the positive, you're going to go in that direction. So there's a lot in the book, but I still read it. I still read it myself to remind myself of certain things.
Yep.
I quote a lot of it online. Just to kind of try and help people in these various groups about alcohol abuse, and that's and I can. What I didn't want, James, was to live in perilous remission for the rest of my life, because I think
perilous remission.
Perilous remission.
That's great.
Yeah, because I think at this point, after so many years, I could say to myself, and honestly, I could look at alcohol and say, does nothing for me. I have no attraction to it. Nothing. I like the taste of beer. So if you look in my fridge now, you'll see Guinness 0.0 and Heineken 0.0. And Athletic Brewing Company makes some good as well. Not that I'm advertising for them, but the market share of NAs has really, really gone up. You're starting to see them. And anytime I am, as a musician, I play sometimes in a bar, and they usually have, one type of NA there. If not, I'll drink water.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Any other questions you might have for me, or because I'm.
No.
I mean, I'm feeling good right now. I'm feeling, and I've been feeling good. And everybody has bad days, but that's just life's challenges. Those are life's difficulties that are going to be thrown at anybody. In the book, it talks about resilience, how to cultivate resilience, and fight against these normal things. But I can honestly say I feel recovered. I don't feel like I'm in recovery anymore. I call myself a non-drinker. I'm a non-smoker. I'm a guy who doesn't use crack or opiates, because it's my decision.
This is the thing. So I actually interviewed someone else who also said the same thing, that they were recovered. I think that's an interesting thing to explore is, can you ever technically be recovered, or is it something you'll battle the rest of your life? Because going back to the big book and just actually the formation of AA, Dr. Bob and Bill had 2 separate recoveries. Bill W. had a spiritual experience where the craving was removed. Dr.
Right.
Bob did not have that, and he fought every day the rest of his life. He said he still had cravings. So they were two sides to the spectrum there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you credit like your research and your writing with your recovery? What do you credit? Like if you had to say, this is, what I really credit with my recovery the most, what would it be?
Well, part of it would be the support of my wife and my family. What's left of my family, which is basically my sister and my daughter. But yeah, that's a big support. I did do some online meetings with Refuge Recovery for a few months, and that was pretty good.
I interviewed Noah. He's the founder. I interviewed him on the podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Noah Levine. Yeah, he's a good dude. You should definitely look at the podcast. He has a good story, and he's definitely got some good stuff. Obviously, it's a Buddhist-based approach.
Yes.
But I like what you were talking about before, neuroplasticity, because that's something like for people that don't know what that is, that's where you can basically remold your brain and train it to do something different. The best way I described it is our brain has those neural pathways, which is basically, just imagine you're taking your drive to work. Every day you do the same thing, and it kind of eventually becomes just a habit. Your brain just knows to do it, and it becomes, once again, now basically with neuroplasticity is you're taking a detour, and you have to get used to that new detour. It's going to bring you to the same place, but in a different manner.
Right. You got to create a new pathway.
Yeah, exactly. And meditation's huge. People don't realize, even in the AA steps, he mentions meditation. It is very important, because Bill W., not to keep going on about AA, because I do like certain aspects of it, and I go against certain aspects of it. He did every morning, do meditation, I believe, for 30 minutes. It was reading scripture, then meditating on it. Right. Obviously, you don't need to read scripture. I don't. But meditation's huge as far as retraining your brain, and just it helps with cravings.
Yeah. And I actually, I think the big part that helped me was learning to live in the present. And, because the past only exists in our mind as a memory. The future may never come. It's just our anticipation of what may or may not happen. But that's what we get anxious over, the future. But if we're really living in the present, and you've probably read some things from Eckhart Tolle, but
I might have. It sounds familiar.
He's a spiritual leader, originally from Germany. I think he lives in British Columbia now. And he's written The Power of Now, A New Earth, Stillness Speaks. And, he talks about really living in the present, and not that you totally you do have to make preparations for the future, and you do have to reflect on the past, and you want to remember enjoyable things. But for the most part, living in the present is when you're there, doing something, whatever you're doing, having a conversation with you, or just drinking a cup of tea, just do that. Just stop your mind from going somewhere else, And again, like you said, meditation helps you with that. And,
and that's the secret. People don't realize, for anyone listening, they go, how many people right now, if we were taking a poll, would say, I can't meditate because my brain races too much. They don't realize that's the whole point, is once you do your first meditation, I say the secret is, that most people don't know, is it's supposed to happen. You're going to get flow. It's how you react to those thoughts, and eventually being able to watch them and not feel them so much, and kind of choosing which ones to, use. So that's what a little, tip for people is, your brain's going to race. You can't stop that. It's how you're going to learn to react to it. And the first time, it's going to be hard. You're not going to be able to do, only do 2 minutes, do 5 minutes.
Right.
Start off small.
Yeah. I find I cannot meditate after I drink coffee.
Yeah. It's another thing.
Because my mind is going, that makes it worse. But, you just got to find your time of day, a nice quiet time when you can, focus on the breathing, because breath is life. Breath is the first thing you take when you're born, and it's the last thing you take before you die. So that's important breathing is. And so just focusing on that, or focusing on something, kind of quiets the mind. But, meditation is more about not only about quieting the mind, like you said, it's exploring what emotions come up and being mindful of those things. Also acceptance, just accepting, life for what it is. I kind of have my own version of the Serenity Prayer, is that, change the things that you can change, accept the things that you can't, and move away from the things that are going to hurt you. Just certain things you can change, certain things you can't, certain things you just have to accept reality. These things are going to exist, and then just letting go of, I call it letting go of anything that makes you weak, all resentment, anger, bitterness, things like that. That's, really, and I actually have a chapter that I wrote about slowing down. We live in a society where everybody's racing around, and it seems like people are bragging that, I got so much to do. It's like, they feel good about it. It makes them feel good. Like, I got so much to do. I don't have time to do anything. You know what? If you slow down, you will have time for everything, because you just slow down and stay focused on what you're doing, and things work out. And then you got to realize that things won't always work out. You won't always have the best of days, and that's okay, because that'll pass. Better days will happen.
All in due time. So my last question for you, is I ask everyone this question, is do you have any advice for people that might be watching or listening?
I do. I say that the power to do most exists inside of you. We are born, we have these inherent qualities of goodness inside of us, that may have been hidden or covered over by all the experiences that we've gone through in life, but they're in there. We do have good qualities, good positive qualities inside, and to focus on that, you can do just about anything. You can stop drinking alcohol, you can stop doing drugs, you can stop smoking. I mean, most people, and when I've done research, most people just quit on their own. I mean, without anything. They don't even tell people, just, no, I'm not drinking anymore. That's it. And you don't hear about them, because how would you? They just decided not to do it. But it's just that, I guess my thing is, you don't really need to turn your life over to a higher power. I mean, they tell you in AA that you can make a doorknob your higher power, but I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I'm having trouble. Do I pray to my doorknob? I mean, I don't get it. I couldn't comprehend it. But I think, despite what's gone through your life, I think if you focus on happiness strategies, and again, in the book, you have the power to fully recover from your alcohol use disorder. I explain all those various strategies, and it's kind of about helping yourself. But, first of all, to heal, you got to heal first. You got to forgive yourself. You got to use self-care. You got to be honest with yourself, first of all.
You need to love you. Well, you need to love yourself in order to be honest with yourself.
Right. You need self-compassion for that. Yeah.
Because we have 4 pillars to our program. And I've mentioned this, and I just mentioned in my last episode. So the 4 pillars of the Addicts Anonymous program are self-love, discipline, hard work, and community. Those are like the, and they all, we'll have a conversation about it after if you want to hear about more, but they all tie into each other. And like you were saying, you got to be honest with yourself. The reason to get honest with yourself is you have to say, I love myself, even if it's just a little bit, that I want to get better. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking into getting better if you did not care about yourself.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah. Well, why be doing it? Yeah. You got to be concerned about that, yeah. Good point. But yeah, that's my theory of it all. I think we have the power within ourselves, and Again, I did not want to be in perilous remission for the remainder of my life. I didn't want to live like that, and doing it this way, I feel so much better. I feel free. Freedom it's not just about living in a democratic country,
Yeah.
or non-dictatorial state. It's freedom within you, to make your choices, and again, there's a lot of things that happen, and a lot of things that you're confronted with. And I think Viktor Frankl, who was he survived a Nazi concentration camp.
Oh,
and
wow.
Viktor Frankl is quoted as saying, if you can't change your situation, change your attitude towards it. So that kind of hit me. A lot of things you can't, but it's about you. The only thing you can change is yourself, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
So
I think it's been a good interview. How do you feel?
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, I think I've covered all I want. I thought that you might, unless you want to hear anything else, but
well, if you want, I mean, keep in mind, we got some time. If you wanted to talk about the book a little more, for the next few minutes, it's up to you. This is the thing about my podcast, is we can do whatever we want.
That's great. Yeah. I could basically, and the back cover says that this book is about the real possibility of making a full recovery from your alcohol use disorder and living an awesome sober lifestyle. It's about making 3 commitments. Like I said before, remain sober, change your lifestyle, seek happiness and contentment. And you learn about all those factors that lead to happiness and contentment. And again, it's about taking responsibility, not pretending that somebody else is going to do it for you, becoming self-empowered, making your own choices. You created the mess, you clean it up. And it's about freedom. And obviously a big part of it is increasing the positivity and decreasing the negativity, and again, that's through neuroplasticity, training your brain. I got that started. That got started in me, in my mind, through The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, which I recommend for anyone to read. I mean, that's just a great book.
I actually read that, and I read The Art of Happiness at Work, where he talks about.
Yeah, I didn't read that.
Yeah, it's a good read.
Yeah, I did not read that one because I'm not working anymore in a working environment. I teach students, and I play music. I play out and play guitar and sing, and it talks about don't allow the sadness of your past or the fear of your future to diminish the happiness of your present. Because that's where you're at right now. This is all we have, is the present moment right now. There's no saying that this won't be my last breath, or yours or anyone's, so we got to live for now. It's got a lot of good strategies. I mean, it talks about, just if I could go through the little table of contents here. It talks about that, you can recover and you will recover. It tells you what the book's not about. It's not about a program. It's about suggestions, because not everything is for everyone. It's about awareness. I talk about why we drink alcohol. Again, those 3 commitments. I have a whole chapter about my personal decision to start a self-improvement journey. I talk about things in early sobriety that are essential, like healing, managing stress, cravings, self-care. What I didn't mention before was positive affirmations. Not so much for me, but I know a lot of people benefit from them.
Yeah.
They're truisms, but sometimes we don't believe them. But the more I learned this in cognitive behavioral therapy, is that the more you tell yourself these things, the more you'll start realizing, hey, these things are true. And once you realize that these things are true, these good things about you, you improve.
Yeah.
Again, I do think you need a support team, especially early in sobriety. Even if you just tell one person, a friend, your spouse, your child, whatever, someone you can confide in and say, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop drinking. And it may be a little hard at the beginning, but I just want you to know that. I also think it's good to meet with, a group of people who are like-minded and have the same goal of, remaining sober, whether it be an AA meeting or Refuge Recovery, Smart Recovery. There's a number of them, but it's good, at least I think for a while, to have that support of other people.
Absolutely. Like I just said, one of the fourth pillar of my program is community. So it sounds like our things align with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I talk about overthinking too, and that's a big problem.
That's a great topic. I never even thought about writing about that, but that's a great topic. Overthinking is huge.
Yeah, ruminating about things that over and over again in your head that you really can't change, and thinking about it is not gonna change them. I talk a little bit about patience and tolerance, and you got to have that, because you're going to deal with people that don't think exactly like you think, and that's a good thing. I don't want everybody to think exactly like I think.
Because that's when you learn more, is when someone doesn't think like you, and they might mention something that you can learn from. That's the whole point of having an open dialogue with people.
Yeah. And like we mentioned before about Buddhist principles, and one of them has to do obviously with kindness, but coupled with generosity. Regardless of who you're contributing to or volunteering your time to, that's part of it too. And that's like that's a win-win situation. If you're doing something for somebody else, you're feeling good about yourself too. So that's another thing. And I think a big thing is having gratitude for what you have, and not always thinking, hey, if I only had this, then I'd be better. Or if I only could get this, or if I could, then I would, feel better about myself. But that's not it. You could, you have the capability of feeling good about yourself right within, and again, I always like to stress for anybody at any age. I'm 68 years old, and I'm bench pressing my weight. So
there you go.
It's a good thing. It keeps you young, and the thing of it is, the more you move your body, the more it quiets your mind. When your body's moving, it's focused on what it's doing, and especially if you're lifting weights and have you drop on yourself, you're going to kill yourself. So your mind is quieted down. The things, ordinary things of the day, they're not going to bother you. You're not going to be overthinking. It just it's a big help. And going into nature, I mean, that's a hiking in nature. It's like you're getting the exercise, and at the same time, you've probably known about walking meditations. You could meditate walking, and if you're walking through nature, I mean, I don't know what better place to be.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So it sounds like you got a good program. So before we go, one more time, show your book and read the title to it, so people could see and hear.
Okay, it's You Have the Power to Fully Recover from Your Alcohol Use Disorder. No Steps Involved. By Joseph R. Rizza. Again, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Author House. They're the ones who published it. It's even at Walmart.com. It's on. You can get it as an ebook or Kindle.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's.
So it sounds like it's readily available.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I kind of recommend it for anybody, even somebody who, like my wife mentioned in her. In her review to me about the book, she was saying, it's really good for anybody who has anxiety or depression, or is just having a little problem dealing with people. Who doesn't have that problem?
Exactly. We all do. That's something we all do.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, let's wrap it up. I want to thank you
Okay.
a lot. Should I thank you a lot because it was a great interview.
Oh, it's
I
been
like
fun.
I like what you got going on with the book and the path it seemed to be on. Seemed to be a good path for you.
And I'd like to learn more about your program as well.
Yeah, we'll chat after this. So for everyone watching and listening, if you like what you heard and saw, click subscribe down below. Also give us a like. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram. You'll find us under Addicts Anonymous. Also, go to our Facebook group under the events tab. You'll see that we host nightly Zoom meetings. You'll see all the information to sign in right there. So that's all I have for today. And until next time.